What is going on, my friends, and welcome back to another video on the channel. Now, I did mention it in the previous video. I did break one of my studio lights, and so the lighting in this room is very, very weird, and I didn't want to have to go through the intense hassle of trying to figure out how in the world to get the lighting right in order for me to actually be in the video. So this video I will not be in. It'll strictly just be a screen recording, as you can see here, but I still did want to be able to give you guys all of the content that you are looking for, especially as this overall platform is just blowing up with all of this stuff now. So I did want to make sure that, again, I was bringing you as much content as I possibly could, so I hope you guys don't mind too much that I'm not going to be in the video. Now, with that being said, one stock that you guys have been absolutely going crazy about is going to be Sundial Growers. Now, I know I said in the last video, the one where I talked about the whole situation with GME, that I was not going to be addressing the situation with GameStop specifically. I wasn't going to be addressing any of that stuff anymore, but if there were certain stocks that you all were talking about getting into or wanted some type of clarity on, or maybe you wanted the fundamentals behind to decide if you wanted to get in, I would still provide you with those even if their names were associated with the overall situation that we are seeing right now. Now, Sundial Growers is one that I have seen in my lives, in my comment sections, in my messages on Instagram very often, and so this was a stock that I planned on making a video about now. And so, I did want to make sure I still did get that out to you guys, because I know some of you are going to be even more enticed to get into this company as all of this hype has really seen its stock price do some crazy things. So we are going to get straight into it. While we do get into this video, I will give you the warning that I will not be saying this word specifically right here, as it does lead to some very strange advertisement issues. This one, or any word relatively remoted to it, I'm just going to be saying in situations like this one that Canadian C companies, I'm just going to be calling this C. Okay, let's just establish that now. But so whenever it comes to Sundial Growers, this is a very interesting stock, and I must say off rip that it does have some very substantial risks when it comes to investing into them. Now, I did pull up this article on Investor Place, as they do word a lot of this perfectly, and I wanted to make sure that I hit some of this very key points that they bring up. Now, what is this company? They're a Canadian producer and distributor of C products. Like many other Canadian C companies, it stands to benefit massively if M becomes legal across the board in the United States. That would be a huge boon for SNDL. And I must agree, as we have seen that a lot of these different C companies, like this one right here, they have been doing fantastic every single time that a state legalizes it, right? That has been a very massive catalyst for each one of these companies, that as it gets legalized state by state by state, that it has slowly started to see a lot of these different stocks and companies grow like very substantially. Now, investing into Sundial, however, has more risks than potential benefits, and I actually, after doing research, I must agree. For one, legislation may not be the only major catalyst facing the company. There are other fundamental risks that make it a speculative stock suitable only for investors with high tolerance for chance. Now, we are going to get in on some of these fundamental risks, as I must agree that I think whenever it comes to this overall industry, that there are certain companies that are simply just better. Now, one good thing that this company does have going for them is the fact that in the place that they operate, which is going to be Canada, they are one of the few countries that have fully legalized this for both recreational and medical purposes. So that is a pretty good thing for them. I think that does, allow them to have a pretty good consumer base, but we will go over that a little bit more in a little while, as their overall market share in this country right here is not that high. Now, the issue is that in the United States, it is still illegal at a federal level, and so that does blur some of the lines about where it can be sold, where it cannot be sold, and what the overall limits to operations are going to be. Now, whenever it does come to, the decriminalization, that is still a work in progress. Now, I do believe that if we do see a full-blown decriminalization in the United States, that this will allow a lot of these different companies within this industry right here to grow substantially, and I think that this company would then benefit from that. So I will give them that. I think that with the legalization of this entire industry right here, that we could see this company, even the stock price, grow a very good amount. Now, when that will happen, no one really knows, as it has been a slow-moving process in many states, so it will just be something to keep an eye on, but that is an overall risk with this entire industry. Now, the reason that I believe that it is super important for this company very specifically is their products are majoritively for recreational purposes, not medical purposes. And that is a fantastic point that is brought up by Investor Place, because a lot of their products aren't going to, fit that qualification for medical use. Now, the reason, the issue with that is that the majority of states that have legalized it for medical use only, not for just recreational use. I believe it's something around 15 states have legalized it recreationally. So this stock success with investors waiting on Sundial to capture market share in the US depends a lot on legal legislation surrounding recreational use. Now, no one knows when that's going to happen because it's been a slow progress whenever we've seen them, start to legalize it for medical use, because that has been the overall argument that it can help medically. Now, whenever it comes to recreational use, that's a whole different subject, and that is going to have its own barriers and its own hurdles to jump over in itself. Now, what I meant earlier whenever I said that I believe some companies are going to benefit a lot better is that companies who do mix in medical use versus, recreational use, I think that it's important to have a good balance of the two, as medical use will likely be the one that is most widely legalized before the end of this year, honestly. And I believe recreational use is going to take a little bit longer. So I think in a long and short term sense that this company is at the, it's on the other side of the fence of some of the ones that do have more potential. Now, just a look at some of the stats around this company. Their enterprise value is sitting at about 347 million. Their market cap is sitting about 280 million. Their cash is about 60 million, and their debt is at 127 million. Now, they have 470 million outstanding shares, which honestly is not too bad. I'm not too worried about that. And their employees are sitting at 366. Now, one thing that is very key to note here is the fact that their cash to debt ratio is very, very extreme. This is about a 1-to-2, and that is not something that I like to see from a company, because there are some times that we will see a company that will has a good bit of debt, maybe 90 million, 80 million, but they'll be sitting on 200, 250 million in cash. Now, that is going to be green debt. That's going to be debt in which they could pay off if it was going to be the most, understandable and most efficient financial option for them, but they simply just don't find it as efficient to use that money to then pay off that debt, as there are better things that they could be doing with it. Well, this company is quite the opposite. They don't have the overall capital to pay off all of this debt. So this is red debt, this is negative debt, and that's not what we like to see from companies. Now, this is a newer company. This is one that still has a lot of growth, and it has a lot of potential in the future as we are seeing this overall industry grow, but it will be interesting to keep an eye on how are they capable of increasing their revenue if the majority of their products are going to be for recreational use and not medical use. Now, there is one thing very specifically that I must say about this company that I'm not a super big fan of, and this might be me being a little bit pessimistic about it, but whenever it comes to their overall strategy, it says here, so their first goal is to deliver industry-leading best-in-class brands and products with a focus on inhalables. The second one is going to be meet evolving consumer preferences with an agile production footprint. Third, to focus on profitability through the business cycle. Fourth, to improve cost discipline and maintain variable structure to adapt to industry dynamics. And fifth, to reduce leverage, improve liquidity, and cost of capital. The issue with that I have with this right now is this is very, very broad. We don't really have anything that explains to us what they are really trying to do going into the future to start to capitalize on some of this market share. And that's something that I'm not a super big fan of. And nothing about this really makes them stand out that makes me think, oh, this company is so much different from these other ones because of this. And in an industry that's growing as fast as this one, I think a lot of companies are going to need that it factor if they really want to see a lot of growth outside of some of the hype that we are seeing around, the short squeezers recently. So as we can see here, though, whenever it does come to Canada, they don't have the largest amount of market share, but I will say that they do have a decent amount. Now, the one thing that I will say about this company is that from Q2 to Q3 of 2020, we did see a pretty good drop in some of these areas that is kind of questionable as to why. Now, as we do see their Western Canada, Ontario, Quebec, and Atlantic Canada, the majority of them all did see drops, except for this one right here, which is Atlantic Canada, but their national share itself dropped nearly 1.4%. Now, this could be accredited to the overall growth of the industry and that there are more companies starting to do it, but that does kind of tell me that this company is not keeping up with the momentum and that there's definitely some more moves to be made. Now, the issue that I have with that is that they already have a lot of debt. And so if they're trying to even further expand out this company, we can see them go into even more debt, which could then be a very, very, substantial risk whenever it comes to financials, which is what we have been seeing whenever we see some of these articles saying that there are fundamental risks that make it a speculative stock suitable only for investors with a high tolerance for chance. So that is one of the ones. Now, there are some other risks, but I don't want to go on and on and on about this company, as I would say the most substantial risk are their market share, their lack of expansion, and I would say that their financials definitely need some work. Now, again, I'm not going to be a full-blown hater on this company. I think that they do have some good things going for them. I mean, capitalizing on 3% of an overall market share in Canada itself is definitely a win. I must say that is definitely a win, and I will give it to them as a newer company that is substantial, and that does show that their products are working and capable. Now, the issue is that this is in a country that is fully legalized. Now you think about the fact that in the United States, it's very at federal level, it's still not legalized, and the majority of states still have it illegal to be used for recreational purposes. So the issue with that is that tells me that if in a market that is pretty much fully open, they're still somewhat struggling to capitalize on the market, that coming down to the United States could be even more of an issue, as the legislation is very blurry. Now, this company has been a very strong member of this overall industry in which we are seeing. A lot of the people who did short squeeze GameStop and AMC and all of them, they are starting to turn to some other stocks, and this is one that we are seeing. Now, of course, it is important to note the short interest in these companies, as this company's stock price is somewhat low, and it also does have a good story. So the short interest, the stock price, and the story is all going to be reasons in why a short squeeze could somewhat work for certain companies. Now, the reason that I believe that this one specifically is getting targeted is if we can see the short interest has been absolutely ridiculous. As we can see here, that this thing only a year ago, let's go all the way back out to January of 2020, and we can see that they were sitting at about 3 million in their short interest, and their average daily share volume was sitting around 2.5 million. Now, only a year later, their short interest is sitting at 66 million, seeing their average daily share volume at 422 million. That is absolutely ridiculous. That is growing fast, and their short volume ratio is growing very fast as well. So it is kind of understandable to see why a lot of their attention has been turned onto this company, and I do believe that what we have been seeing, and the fact that it has been being targeted, could be a negative thing for them in the long run. Now, the reason I do say that is if we go out to the monthly chart, we can see here that they have really been hit by everything that is going on today and yesterday. I mean, only in the last few days alone, they're up about 47%, with 42% of that coming today alone. So one thing that I have been saying about this whole situation is I think a lot of the stocks that are going to be dragged into this are going to be dragged down by this whenever the rug is pulled on this whole event. Because realistically, I don't believe that everything that is going on right now with GameStop, and I don't believe any of it is going to last very long, as we have seen that realistically a lot of this is corrupt. There's a lot of corruption that goes into it, and there's going to be lawsuits, and there's going to be issues, and there's going to be things that happen that are going to shut this down. That is kind of my overall belief. I couldn't imagine that these stocks are just going to keep getting short squeezed at this extent, and that we'll see everything just keep going up as it is. My guess is that whenever this whole operation ends up coming down, that the stocks that were pulled into it and the stocks that are going to be involved with it, such as this one, are going to go down as well. Now, I don't believe that it is going to fully crush this company, as there have been people who invested into this company because they believe that the industry in which they are in has a lot of potential. But whenever it does come to the overall amount of investors who have recently gotten in due to this whole situation, once there is some decline, once there is some red, and once it starts to get a little bit bloody, I think we're going to see those same investors who had FOMO going to have FOLM, which is going to be the fear of losing more. So it will be interesting to keep an eye on. This is not a company that I am interested in getting in personally. I don't really just feel like they set themselves apart in any way, and I believe that the legal issues that they're going to face with their recreational use products is going to be an issue going into the future, and so I'm definitely going to be sitting out on this one. Now, again, I did tell you guys that I wasn't going to be going too in depth about this whole situation, but there are certain stocks that you all I know are going to want to purchase, and I want to do my part in bringing up a lot of the risks that are associated with investing into these stocks that are being affected by all of these short squeeze operations. So again, I don't believe that what is going on is necessarily wrong. I think, hey, if these people want to go ahead and make a statement and make a name for themselves and say, look, we are here, like we matter too, hey, go ahead and do it. But at the end of the day, there are going to be negative effects, and I think long term there will be some companies that get dragged down very far because of it, and so it will be very interesting to keep an eye on, as I know a lot of you are new beginner investors, and I don't want to see you all making the wrong decisions based off of emotions. So that is my overall take on this company. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. I assume some of you are not going to like this video, and I totally understand. I think that people just have differing opinions on what all is going on, and I would love to hear your opinion down in the comment section below. With that being said, this may be another one of a few videos that I'm not going to be in myself, as I again don't have the lights to be able to make the videos and actually keep up the quality in which I've had on my channel. So again, I hope you all don't mind, and yeah, I post on this channel 2 to 3 times every single day, and I hope to see you all soon. Peace.